Hey book friends, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the first video in a bit of a series I am planning on running on my channel where I go through all of my books. I have been wanting to declutter a bit when it comes to my books. It's just a little hard to do, but I really need to do it. And so my plan is to go genre by genre. And today's video is historical fiction. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through all of my books, which I have put out here on the couch. You can see where they normally go. But my plan is to go through them, hold them up, and I want to decide if I want to keep them or not. So some of them I have read, some of them I need to read, and then some of them I'm going to unhaul. But another goal I have is I want to set up my shelves in a way that is like, I've read these books and these ones are the ones I need to read, because right now it's all intermixed and it drives me a little bit nutty that I can't find the ones I haven't read, or I don't see them enough that I forget that I have them. And so I want to organize my shelves a bit better, and I also know I need to get rid of some books. So join me for a bit of an organization, unhaul sort of project of all of my historical fiction books. So hi, my name is Angie. Welcome to the channel. If you are new here, let me just hop in because it might be a bit of a long video, but let me get through all these books, and comment down below if you think I should keep some of them or if you're really excited about some of them. And I just counted all the books and it's like 80 plus books. So let's just hop in. I'm just gonna pull from the top and work our way over. So I have The Wedding Dress Sewing Circle by Jennifer Ryan. This is about a group of women during World War II who make wedding dresses. And I think it sounds really kind of sweet and possibly a little more lighthearted when it comes to World War II historical fiction. So I am definitely keeping this. I've been wanting to read it for a while. So that one is on the keep pile. Okay, next one is Immortals, The Lincoln Highway. So I read this last November or something like that, and I really enjoyed it. I feel like I didn't enjoy it quite as much as The Gentleman in Moscow, and I find myself very drawn into his writing, even if like this one covers like 7 days of this trip back in the 1950s with this kid and his little brother who want to start a new life, and they get a little sidetracked on the way. So I really did enjoy this book, so I am keeping it because I feel like I could reread it. I enjoy his books so much. Next is a Kate Morton book. Okay, so this is The Clockmaker's Daughter. I have not read this, so this is still a book I want to read. I enjoy Kate Morgan's writing style. I enjoy her like dual timeline. I enjoy like the family drama that is surrounded in her historical fiction books. And I believe this is about a group of young artists who all go to some manor and then somebody dies, I think. I think it sounds really good. I won't give up a Kate Morton book. So that is going in my to-read pile. Along with this one, I think I'll be keeping this one. One, it's beautiful. It's The Library of Legends by Jeannie Chan. And this has to do with a group of people right before World War II that are trying to flee Japan. And they work at the university and they're bringing like important documents with them. And I think this one just still sounds really good. And I'm glad I have seen it because I haven't thought about it for a while. It is in my to-read pile. I'm keeping it. Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Have not read this yet. I still need to read this. I really enjoyed The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And this one I believe is about a bunch of rich kids at like a summer party at this rich mansion. And then I believe there's either a fire or somebody dies. I heard it's not as good as some of her other work, but I'm still intrigued enough to keep it. So I'm keeping it on my to-read pile. All right, and then I have this book. So The Lost Girls of Paris by Pam Jenoff. I'm donating this. This is definitely a book I'm giving away. I read it this past spring sometime, and I just did not love it. I didn't enjoy it, and I really should have unhauled it before now, but we're gonna get to it now. It's a World War II story about this group of women who were sent behind enemy lines as like radio operators and things like that. And I did not love the main character and kind of the storyline, so I'm not sure. I didn't like it. I know it's a favorite of a lot of people, but it's going in my unhaul pile along with probably the rest of my Pam Jenoff. I don't know. This is where I'm not sure. I have 3 other books that I bought by her because I thought I would love her writing, and I really didn't like her writing. But the hard thing is was that just a singular book that I didn't like, or would it be like all her writing? So I have The Commandant's Girl, The Diplomat's Wife, and The Ambassador's Daughter. I'm tempted to just unhaul them because I don't know if I'm going to pick them up because I really just disliked The Lost Girls of Paris. Okay, I'm going to temporarily put these in the unhaul pile, and I will see if I'm going to change my mind. You all let me know on that one because I'm a little unsure about what I'm going to do with that. And then, oh, I have all this. I'm not unhauling this book. I loved this book. All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. It's a beautifully written World War II book that really focuses on two kids, an orphan boy and a blind girl, and their stories collide. And I really enjoyed the writing in this. I enjoyed some of the intrigue, and yes, I'm keeping that book, and I really should reread it. And then this one, Secrets of a Charmed Life. So this is a Susan Meisner book. I really love her books. This one focuses on World War II. It focuses on these sisters who have been sent to the countryside, but one returns back to the city right around the time of the bombings. And I really enjoyed this book. I didn't love the main character, or at least the teenage girl perspective, but I enjoyed the book immensely. So I'm going to keep that one. Okay, here's another Susan Meisner. So this is A Bridge Across the Ocean. This one I think I might unhaul. I did not love it as much. It's about these war brides, so post World War II, and they are being sent across the ocean to America to their American husbands. And there's this one girl who has to fake some documentation to get on the boat. And it's just not my favorite. So I'm going to unhaul that one. Next, I have The German Heiress by Anika Scott. It's about a German woman who sounds like she is being pursued by a British officer who thinks she was involved in war crimes. That sounds really interesting. That's a unique premise. I think I will be keeping this one. Put that on my to-read pile. Okay, this book has been on so many TBRs. Beneath a Scarlet Sky by Mark Sullivan. This is a World War II novel as well, but it's set in Italy, and it's based on this boy who is like a teenager, and he wants to be a part of the resistance, but his parents are fearful for him, so they sign him up to be a Nazi. But then I think he does some like double crossing sort of thing and spying for the Allies. Not 100% sure, but I've heard wonderful things about it. So it's going on my to-read pile. This is fun because there's a lot of these books I have forgotten about. So this one, We Were the Lucky Ones. This is by Georgia Hunter. I really enjoyed this book. So this is another World War II book. It's about a Jewish family in Poland, I believe, and then they get separated, and you follow the different family members through some really hard decisions they have to make during the war. But it is a touching World War II book, so I'm keeping it. Here's a Kristen Hanna book, The Great Alone. So this is about a family who is post-Vietnam War, where the dad comes home with a little bit of PTSD, and he moves his family to Alaska, and they have to survive there. And it's just his wife and his daughter, and he is abusive in nature, and they are not prepared for the Alaskan wilderness. But you kind of watch them grow and prepare, which was probably my favorite part of this book, so I have read it. It's not my favorite Kristen Hanna, but I'm going to keep it because I did enjoy it. This one I'm keeping for sure. The Book Thief by Mark Zuzak. I loved this book. It is such a sweet book. It's about this girl who ends up being fostered by this German couple during World War II, and they have to live as German citizens, and they don't really agree with the regime, and there's some things they do, and she tries to do her part by like stealing some of the banned books or the books that are being burned at that time. So that doesn't do it justice in the explanation, but it is such a good book. So another Susan Meisner, The Last Year of the War. I have not read this yet, but I want to, and I'm glad I see it again. So this has to do, I believe, with Japanese internment camps in the U.S. during World War II. I don't know much more than that, but I want to read it, so I'm keeping it. All right, I have this book too, which I have put on a lot of different TBRs. The Lost Jewels by Christy Manning. So this has to do with a jewel historian. So I think it's a dual timeline book again, where she's investigating some lost jewels, and it flips back to the owner of the jewels. And I'm not quite sure the connection between the past and present timelines, but I want to read it. That is to read. And then I have this one, which I've also talked about a lot, In the Time of the Butterflies by Julia Alvarez. This talks about this group of sisters who push back against the Cuban dictator, Trujillo. And it talks about how their husbands were involved in the resistance, and then I believe they were captured, and then the sisters kind of took over, if I remember well enough. But it sounds so good, and I still think it sounds so good. Okay, here's this book. I'm not sure if I should put this in my fantasy or my historical fiction. I think I'm going to put it in historical fiction. It's A Secret History of Witches by Louisa Morgan. So it is a family saga book about witches, is what I understand. And I really enjoy family saga books. And so I think I'm going to keep it, and we'll see when I'm in the mood. And then I have this one, which is middle grade historical fiction. And it's inspired by a true story, it says. And it's When the World Was Ours. 3 friends, 2 sides, 1 memory. It's about a group of friends who end up on very different journeys during World War II, and the idea is like, are they able to come back to each other? I like that it's middle grade, and I definitely want to keep it just in case it can be something my kids can read shortly. So that's in the to keep pile. All right, this one, I'm keeping it. It was my favorite book of 2020. So it's Bright as Heaven by Susan Meisner, which started my Susan Meisner buying. And this is about the Spanish flu of 1919, which, as the microbiologist, I love the portrayal of the family as well as the science involved. So I'm keeping that. Next, I have Lilac Girls by Martha Hall Kelly. I read this year, and I was really impressed by it. It follows kind of 3 different women during World War II, and one of them ends up in a concentration camp. One of them is a German doctor in a concentration camp. Another's an American socialite, but I feel like the German doctor was what made this a really, really interesting story. So it is World War II, so it is a challenging story to read, but I did really enjoy it. All right, I have The Lady of the Rivers by Philippa Gregory. Philippa Gregory and I just cannot decide if I like her books. I find them really detailed, but in a way that doesn't draw me into the characters, because I'm a character-driven reader for sure, but I can't seem to ever get into her books. So I started this and I never finished it, so I think I'm just going to unhaul it. Along with the other Philippa Gregory book I have, maybe I'll keep this. I don't know. Okay, so this is Tidelands, and this I think has to do with a woman who meets a man kind of on the run during what war? Oh, during 1648, and there's a civil war going on, and she helps him, but should she help him, I think is what this is about. I'm going to put this in the unhaul pile, and then I'm going to decide. Next book is The Women of Chateau Lafayette. So this is by Stephanie Dre. I want to read this. I want to read this so bad. I finally bought myself a copy, and now I just haven't read it, and I can't believe I haven't read it yet. This is about 3 time frames in France and this castle in France that is run by women and how they protect the castle during kind of the French Revolution, World War II, and World War I, I think. So I'm keeping that. All right, next, A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. I'm keeping this. I loved it. I really liked the Count. I just found his character very entertaining. He has been sequestered to this hotel as like a lifelong imprisonment, and you follow his life, and you'd think that would be boring, but it wasn't. So I'm keeping that. So this is The Underground Railroad by Colston Whitehead. I have heard mixed things about this, and I'm not sure why. I just don't really want to pick it up. It has to do with this slave who escapes on the Underground Railroad, and then someone is chasing her, I believe. I think I'm going to unhaul it. I'm just not that interested. I'm not reaching for it, so I'll put that in the unhaul pile for now. Oh, The Yellow Bird Sings by Jennifer Rosner. This was the group read for Historathon a year and a half ago or whenever it was, and I didn't love it. It's about this mom and this girl who hide out, and the girl is like 5 or 6 years old, and she's like this musical prodigy, and she has to kind of stay quiet in this barn or they're going to get caught. And I just didn't feel like the 5-year-old acted like a 5-year-old. I think that was my biggest problem. I don't know. I think I'm going to unhaul it. I can't imagine myself reading it again. Okay, guys, and we might be halfway. Okay, I picked up this one from Book of the Month, Sisters in Arms by Kea Alderson. I've heard mixed things about this, which is just a bummer because it is about the Women's Army Corps in World War II, and it sounds really good. I love the premise of following this band of women who are helping out during the war, but I haven't heard good things, but I think I'm still going to keep it. I'm going to keep it because I think I really could like it, and I want to see for myself if I like it. Okay, this book, The Other Bennett Sister. I read this a couple months ago, and I loved it. It was such a good book. It is following Mary Bennett, the sister that's kind of overlooked in the whole Pride and Prejudice novel, and it's so good. I really, really enjoyed it, so I am keeping that book for sure. Okay, I have this beast of a book. I can't remember who recommended this, but this is Mary Queen of Scotland and the Isles, a novel by Marguerite George. You guys, this is a huge book about the Tudors, I believe. Well, Mary Queen of Scots, obviously. I feel like I could really like this. I am not put off by its age. I'm going to keep it, and I hope I pick it up sometime soon. And then I have this book. Okay, so These Shallow Graves by Jennifer Donnelly. I read this, gosh, a couple years ago, and I really enjoyed it. It's a YA historical thriller type book. It's about this elite woman in the early 1900s, late 1800s, whose father dies suspiciously, and she doesn't believe it's an accident, and she kind of follows it from there. So I really like that, so I'm keeping it. Okay, I have this one. I picked this up from a little library, and it's 1000 White Women, the Journals of May Dodd. Oh, I don't know. I've heard good things about this. I just don't feel very drawn to reading it, so I think I'm going to unhaul it. Okay, I have The Book of Lost Names. This is by Kristen Harmel. This book drove me nuts for a good first half of it just because of the character work in here. The story was excellent. It's not my favorite, and I need to give Kristen Harmel another shot because I didn't absolutely love this book. So I think I'm going to unhaul it. Why would I keep it if I didn't love it? I'm going to unhaul it. Same with this book. I read this and I didn't love it. So it's Pachenko by Min-Jin Lee. I felt like I should have loved this because so many people do. And I did really enjoy the first half of this book. And then I really didn't like the second half. It just got too long. And I can't see myself ever picking this back up. It's also kind of a family saga around the time of World War II in Korea. And there's kind of some Japanese-Korean tension. This explores it, which I did enjoy the historical aspect of it. I feel like it just got a little bit long for me. So I think I'm going to unhaul it. But I'm going to unhaul this one too. So I read this, The Children's Blizzard by Melanie Benjamin. This book I found very engaging in the very first 50 pages when they talked about this blizzard that hit the Dakota territories in the late 1800s, and the children who were at the schoolhouse did not come to school prepared. And then there was this super fast, super deadly blizzard that came through, and it follows two school teachers and what they did to protect their kids. And it is hard to read. It's like watching a train wreck. But then the rest of it I just didn't love. I didn't love the characters. So I already know I'm unhauling that one. Okay, I have this book. So Revolution by Jennifer Donnelly. So I picked that up because I loved These Shallow Graves. And this is about a girl in modern time who somehow gets transported back to, I believe, the French Revolution time. I started to read this, but I didn't love it. So I'm just going to unhaul it. All right, I also have The Heiress of Winterwood by Sarah Ladd. So I believe this might be Christian fiction. And it is about this heiress who promises to take care of her dying friend's baby, I believe, and then does that, and then there is some challenges with that, I believe. I'm not sure. It's a very unique book in my pile. I don't have hardly any Christian fiction. I think I'm going to keep it. I'm not particularly drawn to it, but I don't want to give up entirely on kind of a whole subset genre, such as Christian historical fiction. So I'm going to keep it. I also have this book, okay, The Family by Naomi Krupitsky. It is about these two girls who are best friends who are part of, I believe, this mob family, or maybe two mob families, and then something happens and they separate, and then I think they have to come back together in this book. I think it sounds really entertaining, so I'm definitely keeping that. I haven't heard too much about that one way or the other. I also have this book, which I think is a beautiful book, but it's called A Bend in the Stars by Rachel Barenbaum. I'm not sure if this is YA or not, but what I like about this is it's set around the First World War. So it's not a World War II book. And it's set, I believe, in Russia, following these two kids in a Jewish family. And then the parents die, and then the brother goes missing, and I think the sister has to find him. I'm not sure, but I think it sounds really good, and it's unique in the pile of books that I have. And then I have The Fountains of Silence by Ruta Sepetys. So this I have read. It follows the Spanish Civil War during the time of Franco, and it follows this American photographer who comes in and starts kind of asking questions. And then there's this young Spanish woman who is forming kind of an attachment to him, but it's very risky to have questions like that. And she puts her family at risk by associating with him. And I really did enjoy this book, so I'm going to keep it. Okay, and then I picked up this book, Liberty by Caitlin Greenidge. I haven't heard great things about it. It sounded really good though. So it's a coming of age of a freeborn black girl in Reconstruction era Brooklyn. And I think it's like her pushing against her mom. So maybe this is almost more contemporary in nature than historical fiction. I think I'm going to keep it. I think it still does sound good, even though people don't necessarily like it. But I'm keeping this one. I'm definitely keeping this one. Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. I really enjoyed this book about this marsh girl, who is kind of left alone by her parents. She's left alone at like 6 years old, and she has to fend for herself, and the town thinks she is strange. And I think this is like the 60s, yep. 60s in Louisiana or something like that. And then a murder happens in the town and people blame her. Such a good book. I really enjoyed it. All right, I have this book. So Outlander. So I've read this book and I really enjoyed it. And I really think I need to move on in the series. I need to pick it back up because I liked it. I like the historical fantasy aspect of these books about our main character, Claire, who is kind of sucked back into 1743 Scotland and all that happens with that. I really enjoyed it, but I'm putting that in my keep pile. And then I have this one, which I want to get to. So that's The Flight of the Sparrow by Amy Bedleen Brown. So this is about Mary Rowlandson, who's taken captive by Native Americans during kind of the Puritan times, and she's forced to live with the tribe, and I feel like all these preconceived notions are kind of broken down. I really want to read this, and I cannot believe I still haven't read it. All right, next is this. So it's Sarah's Key by Totana. I can't see quite the whole name because of that sticker. I should take that off. This one is a World War II novel about this girl who locks her baby brother, or 6-year-old brother, in like a closet to save him from the Nazis, and promises to come back, and then she doesn't come back. And I think it tells the story after that. Oh, that sounds heart-wrenching, but I think I'm gonna keep it. And then Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I have been wanting to read this for a while. I've heard great things. It's like a gothic historical fiction type book about this woman named Rebecca who meets this man on a boat, I believe, and they have this whirlwind romance turned marriage, and then he brings her back to his estate, and she has to deal with the fact that he was previously married, and all the staff really loved his first wife, and maybe she's haunting the house. I'm not sure, but I'm keeping it. All right, another book that I just picked up is called Luck of the Titanic by Stacey Lee. It sounds really interesting. It's about this woman who is like searching for her brother and has to like stow away on a ship. That ship happens to be the Titanic, and I think it goes from there. So I'm really interested in that. And then I also recently picked up this book, The Last Garden in England by Julia Kelly. I don't know, it sounded really interesting. I actually have no idea what it's about. Oh, it sounds like it kind of jumps in time from present day to early 1900s to 1944 around this house and this garden. And I don't know where it goes from there, but that sounds interesting. And then this book I got as a recommendation from someone, I can't remember, but it is a YA book called They Went Left by Monica Hesse. I believe this is like a World War II novel about the fact that a family gets split up in the concentration camps, but I'm not sure, and it probably is gonna break my heart, but I'm going to keep it. Okay, the next book I have is The Personal Librarian by Marie Benedict. I like Marie Benedict. I enjoy her stuff, and this is about a woman named Belle who's put in charge of a famous New York library. She has a secret, and some things go from there. So that just sounds really good. Keeping that, obviously. All right, so this is another book, A Lawn Petal of the Sea by Isabel Allende. This book, I cannot decide what to do with it. I'm kind of halfway through it. I had to put it down. It's about the Spanish Civil War and these people who have to escape kind of over the mountains, and they end up on a boat to, I believe, Chile, and they really want to get back to Spain. I loved her writing style. I just feel like it was a little weighty for when I initially picked it up, but I'm going to keep it. I'm not going to unhaul it. I'm going to try again and read it. Okay, this book sounds so interesting. So this is The Christie Affair by Nina de Gramont. I believe this is about the story of Agatha Christie when she goes missing for like 3 days and then comes back and nobody knows where she was and she doesn't explain herself very well. I think that's what this book is about, which just sounds fascinating. I've been loving me some Agatha Christie these days. So then I also have this book, The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. So this was a really interesting book. It's about this idea of there was this woman back in, I think, London 200 years ago who ran an apothecary shop, but she had this like late night business where women could come in and get poisons for their husbands or whatever it is that they want to get rid of. And I thought it was a really enjoyable historical fiction book. Okay, this book I'm keeping for sure. So The Giver of the Stars by Jojo Moyes. It's about the traveling library in Kentucky and these women who fight for it, basically. It's just a beautifully told book. I was surprised how much I liked that book, so I'm definitely keeping that. And then another Kristen Hanna, so The Four Winds. I really enjoyed this book. It's about Depression era and this family, how they try to move to California for a better life, and there's problems along the way, to say it lightly. I enjoyed it. It's not my favorite Kristen Hanna again. My favorite is The Nightingale, which is over here somewhere, but I'm keeping that. Moving on. The Pull of the Stars by Emma Donoghue. I loved it. It was another Spanish flu type book. It takes place in Ireland on a maternity ward, and it follows this nurse who takes care of the patients who have the flu but are also pregnant, and it's Just a very interesting book. It takes place over like 36 hours or something like that, and some of it's a little hard to read, but it was very entertaining. And then I also have The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Love this. It followed a movie star who had many husbands, and she gets to tell her story in this book. You feel like she's a real person. She's not, but it's very entertaining. So I'm keeping that, if I didn't mention that. And then Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. I'm also keeping this. This is the story of the last woman who was executed in Iceland. And it follows her story, like, did she really kill these two men? What happened? This is a very well-written book where you just don't know what is true, and you really are rooting for her, and you're not sure if you're rooting for a murderess or not. And then I also have another Kristen Hanna. This is called Fly Away, which I haven't read this one yet, but I read the first one. I think it was called Firefly Lane, and this is the sequel to that following the girl. The first one is just a very touching book, and I really want to get to the second one. So I picked that up and I forgot I had it. The Invisible Woman by Erica Roebuck. It's a spy book in World War II. This woman is recruited by the Allies to be a spy. That's what it's about. I'm going to keep it. I tend to like the spy books. Okay. Another one I have is The Kitchen House by Kathleen Grisham. I believe this is about a little white girl who's orphaned, like on her way from Ireland. She loses her whole family, and then she becomes an indentured servant on a tobacco plantation. And she works, I believe, in the kitchen. And so you follow kind of her interactions with the other slaves as well as the family, I believe. I've heard really good things, so I'm keeping it. Okay, I read this book. So The Ninth Hour by Alice McDermott. Okay, this book was very interesting. It still sticks with me, but I still think I'm going to unhaul it. It's not my favorite book. It's about Brooklyn during the early 1900s, I believe, and it follows kind of the Catholic nuns as they are ministering to the people and things like that. And it's about this woman whose husband commits suicide, and then she starts to live with the nuns, and she brings her small baby, and they grow up at the parish, if you will. And so I liked it. I just don't think I'll ever reread it, but I will try something else from Alice McDermott. I enjoyed her writing, but not enough to keep that one. Okay, Mr. Dickens and His Carol by Samantha Silva. I want to read this during Christmas, maybe. I should put it on a Christmas TBR. So it is about Charles Dickens. It's a historical fiction about Charles Dickens and how he goes about writing The Christmas Carol, I believe. Another Kate Morton, So The Distant Hours. I've been wanting to read this for a while. It's ended up on a lot of TBRs as well. It's about this letter that was lost and this woman in present day who's asking questions about her mother and where her mother was sent to the countryside during World War II. And she goes back to this castle and meets kind of the unique spinsters that live there still. Tell her a bit more about her mother, I believe. All right, Kristen Hanna, The Nightingale, one of my favorite books. World War II, two different sisters resisting in their own ways. Oh, so good. I loved it. One of my favorite books. Okay, I have these books. So I have The Pillars of the Earth and World Without End by Ken Follett. I started reading this one a long time ago, and it is just very detailed. And I don't usually mind detail, but I don't think I'm going to read these. I don't think I'm going to read them, so I think I'm going to unhaul them. We only have like 10 books left. We're getting there. So The Other Einstein by Marie Benedict. I loved this book. It follows Mitza, who is the first wife of Albert Einstein. She was also a very smart physicist, and it kind of gets into how their lives were wrapped around each other and asks questions about, like, was she the one that came up with the theory of relativity? Who knows? So I loved that book. So obviously I'm keeping it, and I'm keeping this one too, The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek by Kim Michelle Richardson. This tells a story. This is also a traveling library type book, but it focuses on a main character who has blue skin, and it's a recessive genetic disorder, and she's very much shunned by the people in the town, but she has just such strong character, and I just really enjoyed this story. I enjoyed it a lot, so I'm keeping it. Okay, Life After Life by Kate Atkinson. This is an interesting book. I liked it because it kind of had a little bit of a time travel. It wasn't time travel. It was like she was in a time loop where she would restart her life over and over and over again. And I enjoyed it. But I think I will keep it because I could potentially reread it. It sometimes pops into my brain. I loved this one, Where the Lost Wander by Amy Harmon. So this is about kind of westward expansion, Oregon Trail, and all that entails. I really enjoyed this more than I thought I would because I really don't feel like I'm particularly drawn to books about that topic, but I really enjoyed that. Okay, I have this book, Dragonfly by Leah Meckham. I don't know what this is about. Oh, that's right. It's about like a group of Americans who become spies in World War II. I think that's what it's about. I'm going to keep it. There's this book, Once Upon a River by Diane Setterfield. This one was an interesting book. It has to do with a river, the river in London, and there's this girl who was drowned and presumed dead, brought into this inn, and then she magically kind of came alive, and nobody knew who she was, and she wasn't talking, and the story kind of goes from there, where all these people think they have a claim on her. I liked it, but I didn't love it. I don't think I'll reread it. I think I'm going to unhaul it. I might have given it 3 stars. Okay, Kite Runner by Khalid Hassani. This book is really good. I'll never reread it because it's just so emotionally impacting, but I'm going to definitely keep it. It's about Afghanistan and this friendship between these 2 boys who grew up there, and it's fractured due to this horrific event, and then one of the kids comes back to help out later in life. It's kind of like a redemption story, so I'm keeping it for sure. I'm pretty sure I'll never read it again because it was just so hard to read. Okay, and then I have this book, Champagne Widows by Rebecca Rosenberg. I think I'll keep it. So it is about this woman who in Champagne, France, who her and her husband own a vineyard, and then her husband dies, and then she's not able to take it over because she's a woman, and then I'm not sure where it goes from there, but I think I'll keep it. That sounds unique and interesting, so you never know when I could get into that. And then I have this book, which I've been wanting to read for a long time. So it's an Ariel Lawhon. I Was Anastasia, so it's about the lost princess Anastasia. That's all I need to say about that. Okay. The Queen's Secret. So this is interesting. So this is Karen Harper. So this is about Queen Elizabeth and her rule through pretty much World War II and how that went. I think this would be very interesting just in light of like recent news and everything. Okay. Here's another one. This is called The Queen's Gambit by Walter Tevis. So this looks really interesting. I'm not sure really what it's about other than it's about chess. Maybe it's not even historical fiction. I think it probably is. So it's about this orphan girl who starts playing chess and then starts competing in chess. I'm not sure what else there is to that. I think I'm going to keep it. It just sounds really unique. And I don't have that many books about that topic. Then the last one I'm definitely keeping. I haven't read yet. It's My Dear Hamilton. This is also by Stephanie Dray and also Laura Kamoe. And this is a story about Eliza Hamilton and being married to Alexander Hamilton during the whole duel and Revolutionary War and all that. So I love the idea of it being told from her perspective. Oh man, I have really large piles. I would say if I have to look at it all kind of briefly, I'd say I have about 20 books I'm unhauling, 20 books I've read, and about 40 books that are on my to be read pile for historical fiction. So this is perfect. This is exactly what I needed to do. I just wanted to organize myself. I wanted to get rid of books that I'm just not super excited about and only keep the ones I am excited about. So I'm going to put them all back on my shelf and hopefully continue through some of the other genres, but this is kind of tiring. So we will see if I do it today or another day. But thank you guys for coming along with me. And again, let me know down below if you think I should keep any of the books that I threw in the unhaul pile, or if you think I should really prioritize some of the books that are on my TBR. Let me know all of that down below. And otherwise, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next book video. All right,